My religious life has been somewhat of a huge roller coaster. It involved a quest for answers, curiosity and inquisitiveness, critical thinking, and continued questioning. I wasn't always a theist. In fact, it took me a long time to become such. Allow me to introduce myself. I'm Nikolai, I'm 20, and I'm from Enola, just outside of Harrisburg. I was raised in a somewhat religious family. From a young age, I was spoon-fed stories from the Bible, though I was not exposed to a real Bible yet. It was merely a children's explanation of some stories from the Bible. When I was read about the events by my mother, I was very fascinated by it, though I did have some questions about the parts where God punished wicked people. I pushed the negatives aside and taught myself to see the positive side of it, that God was only punishing those who went against his commandments and sought to wreak corruption in the land. I was taken to church quite often when I was around 9 or so years old, though I never truly understood what religion even was. I was familiar with terms like heaven and God, but I was yet to be familiar with everything else. For a few short years from late 2014 to 2018, I was almost completely oblivious to religion. I did see and hear words like Christian, Muslim, Jewish, and Hindu being spewed, but never understood what they meant or the significance behind them. I used to see articles on how to behave in specific religious centers, but again never understood the significance behind them or what religion truly was. I remained mostly oblivious to religion for a bit longer. I remember a Pakistani Muslim family who used to live in a neighborhood adjacent to mine, but they have since left, and a Somali girl who was likely born into Islam. And those people were the only real things I knew about Islam. And I also remember being shown CNN 10 videos in middle school, specifically 7th grade, during homeroom where we would watch programs, and sometimes radical Islamist groups, most notably ISIS, would be mentioned. Those groups were also one of the only things I knew about Islam as well. I used to believe that Islam was inherently dangerous and that Muslims didn't deserve any trust after what they pulled on the US in 2001. That used to be my rationale until one day I finally decided to do some online research about Islam and Muslims, plus many other different religious belief systems, their followers, their assertions, history, culture, tenets, and many other unique aspects. The exploration of the God of the Israelites, religious music, and a broader expansion of religion in general eventually led me to find faith in the God of the Israelites and offer worship to him, and convert to Christianity somewhere in April or May of 2018, though it did not happen straight away. I'm willing to admit that at first it was out of a fear of a negative outcome in the afterlife, but as time went by and prayed to God more, I found a sense of comfort in it, and it personally felt great to have someone watch over me and protect me. And feeling a sense of reward and guidance from him started to feel great, and no longer felt afraid in many senses, and made genuine attempts to get closer to God for the right reasons, not merely because of a fear of going to hell. While it is something I'm mindful of even when practicing Islam, I don't feel the same exact fear of a negative afterlife I felt when I first converted to Christianity. I took some time to reflect on the Bible studies I had with my mother many years prior, and it all made sense to me. I finally had somewhat of a better picture of the afterlife, God, the prophets, the Bible, and Christianity. I spent a good year as a devoted and strong Christian. Despite being a Christian at the time, I took this time to study other world religions and what they believed in, such as Islam, Hinduism, and Buddhism. Those were the first religions I studied, though I did and still do study religions like Judaism and its branches and its aspects such as tefillin, how to convert, talit, tzitzit, payos, trimals, mezuzahs, the beit dins, and mikvahs, just to name a few. But my expansion into Judaism, specifically Haredi Orthodox Judaism, and many other denominations, did not happen until close to my junior and senior years of high school. Many different aspects of Islam and Christianity, and even learned a bit about Shinto, the Baha'i, and Druze. As time passed into my studies, when I arrived at Islam, I googled some known words that are commonly used among the populace, such as Muslim and Quran. When I did that, I thought about just giving up, but changed my mind and opted to press my luck and continue mining further. I learned all sorts of different things, such as how it formed many Arabic words that are used in the faith, Hadith, Muhammad, their concept of the God of the Israelites, and how they eventually spread to the areas they did. As a result of my studies of Islam, which, spoiler alert, led me to convert to Islam later on, helped me break through negative bias, assumption, and picturing and stereotypes. I even began listening to nasheeds, which are Islamic theme songs that are sung in Arabic, Farsi, Turkish, Kurdish, and even Uyghur, though I was exposed to the Arabic ones first. As time during my Islamic research elapsed, I found that I only wanted to keep studying it and go further and further. During that time, I also no longer believed the mindset that I used to believe about them, and Instead, I started to love the faith and the people very much and wanted to get to know them. I also began to realize just how wrong I was about everything I believed in the past, though at that time I had no intention of converting to Islam and I was still a Christian at that time. I did still read my Bible as well. I remember briefly becoming a Christian extremist, and I reflect on it from time to time, and I realized I was doing none more than using the Bible as an excuse for extremism. The act of using holy books as sources for extremism is something condemned in all religions, including Islam. Arriving in the summer of 2019, I took some time to reflect. I found a video recommended to me about how to perform a Friday prayer in a mosque. I did research in WikiHow, and one of the articles that pulled me closer than ever before was an article called How to Stop Viewing Islam as a Bad Religion. When I read the article, and yes, I read it from top to bottom, and even the comments section, I was moved by it, and it helped me a lot. I was willing to admit one factor that sowed the seeds of me wanting to convert to Islam. I read more articles on WikiHow about Islam and Muslims, and they really helped me a lot. Finally, one day in the summer of 2019, I finally decided to get down on my knees, utter the Shahada, there are no other gods but God, Muhammad is his messenger, and accept Islam, and become part of it. Since then, I have been trying to live by the tenets the best I can and follow it the best I can. I feel like that decision, converting to Islam, made my faith in God stronger than ever before, and I'm grateful for that. I strive to pray 5 times a day the best I can, and by the way, not long after converting, learning the movements and memorizing the words to the prayers. It took some time, but I eventually got the hang of it, and I have since been able to recite all my salahs from memory, including Quran verses in Arabic, which is also a language needed to recite prayers in. I wish I could say it's easy, but it's not. Every day I struggle with doubts about many aspects of God and parts of Islam, but made genuine attempts to resolve it and find reliable answers, and that has helped me in a tremendous way. I do still struggle with being torn between different belief systems, but I've made attempts to wrestle it. I personally think that had I not been open to all possibilities and been open-minded, it's possible I could have continued to be a Christian extremist and continued to believe many negative misconceptions about various faiths, including Islam. I did and still do continue to study and research many different arguments for the existence of the God of the Israelites and theological and philosophical issues that I think I was able to get resolved to my expectations by myself, and through positive research and evaluation. I've now been a follower of Islam for 5 years now, and it truly feels like a blessing for me, and I have remained steadfast, even in the face of my various burdens. Part 2. Why I am no longer a Christian. I was an evangelical Christian for most of my life, and me converting to Islam was both amazing and terrifying at the same time. I see it as amazing for the mere fact that it handed me down a legendary opportunity to see the world from a brand new perspective, and terrifying because I was well aware I was leaving behind the faith I was raised with, but didn't let it interfere with my devotion and steadfastness. When I was contemplating whether or not I would convert to Islam, I also studied different ways most mainstream Christians view the God of the Israelites and the prophets. I did and still do remember being taught that Jesus, for example, was the Son of God. At first, I mistakenly believed that he was like his literal son. I was taught that the context of that was that he was an avatar of God. When I was coming closer to converting to Islam, I began to regard that as the falsest thing I've ever heard. I also learned that Christians assert that Jesus was the human avatar of God, which I was also convinced couldn't be right, because God is the most high of everything. Nothing can be equal to, let alone be better than God. Even the Bible has made it patently clear in my view. Obviously, the Quran condemns polytheism, and joining partners of any sort with God is called shirk. For instance, I learned about how Daniel was sentenced to the lion's den for failing to worship King Darius. As much as Daniel liked Darius and he was a good man, he was still not God. And also when 3 men named Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were sentenced to be burned alive for not worshiping a golden statue and worshiping God instead, that all over proved the nature of God as monotheism in each of his 3 main Abrahamic faiths. Also, the way I see Jesus is the same way a Christian sees Moses, Aaron, or Ishmael. I see Jesus as someone who was born to a virgin with the help of Angel Gabriel, who performed miracles, some of which helped people, and was a messenger sent by God to give the most plausible, straightforward view of figures like God, Jesus, and the prophets. I also believe that Muhammad ibn Abdullah was the final prophet sent by God to preach his word one more time and reform it. To sum up, my religious life has been what could be called a roller coaster in many ways. My hope is for people to understand my own perspective. I also assert that peaceful interreligious dialogue, independent and careful research and debate are strict musts if we are to push past negative stereotypes and negative bias. Well, that's a wrap. Thank you for watching.